but so real. Yeah, give me change that you can feel. Yeah, a dream we can't believe. Yeah, welcome to Knowville. Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate everybody checking in today. This is Knowville, and I'm here, your host, Rome Williams, speaking with a man who has created a Black comic book company, Black-owned comic book company, not exclusively the characters, of course. But I'm speaking with Mr. Tony Kittrell. Sir, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to our audience today.
Well, good morning. First of all, Rome, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. And to all your listeners, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be heard by you. My name is Tony Kittrell. I have been the CEO and founder of Advent Comics. We've been going on. This is going into our 12th year come August 1st. And like you said, we're Black owned, Black operated. All the characters that we've created are owned by me, Black owned company characters, books. And we have approximately 13 ongoing titles right now. We've produced several miniseries, graphic novels. We have some trade paperbacks. You name it, prints. We do it all. We aiming to go to the next phase. We're trying to do some animation and some other things coming down the pike this year. But we'll talk about that later. Area. And we are Maryland's primary small indie press comic book company.
Okay. And what I'm gonna have to do right now is do you have like the TV on or something?
Oh, my apologies. Yeah,
no, you're fine. It's just picking it up.
My apologies.
Mr. Goldman, the action that the House takes is really about protecting our.
Okay.
Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you, sir. And so what was it? Obviously you have a love for comics, especially, doing this at this day and time when you see the crazy things happening with the comic industry. What was your inspiration? Like, what made you say, I got to get this story and I got to get it out in a comic medium?
Well, that goes back. Like I said, I've always had a love for comic books since I was a young man. But to actually get into this industry, that was around 97-ish. Marvel had put out a line called Epic, which was a imprint from them, where they were looking for new creators, new writers, and things of that nature. And I had wrote a story, and it did make some waves. Editorial had liked it, and it was almost accepted, except the character that I used for Marvel, they ended up killing and doing something else with the character. So the story was so good, I was like, I can do this on my own. So I kicked it around for a few years, didn't do anything with it. Me and my wife, we were on our anniversary. We took a trip, and it just so happened we went out to San Diego and Comic-Con was going on. And in our hotel was Tyrese, the singer. Wow. So, saw him in the hallway. He was like, hey, sir, we're not trying to, interrupt you or anything. Just want to say we're fan, woo, woo. So he was chopping it up with us, like, you going to Comic-Con? I was like, nah, we ain't going to Comic-Con. Like, that's what you here for? And he was like, yeah, I got a comic book out. He had a comic book from Image back then called Mayhem. And I was like, hey, you sing, you act? What you doing with a comic book? And he was like, bruh. He was like, comic books is big. I said, well, I know I'm a fan, but he was like, no, trust me, comic books are big. So he got us into the floor, and I got to see some different sites that were going on back there. And I did a walk around, and it was only like 3 brothers in the whole place. 2 who have since stopped producing, and then Kobe Marks, who had this book called Stormfront. And I was like, bruh, I'm like, this is nice, but I'm like, where the brothers at? And he was like, man, he said comic books is $1 billion industry. He was like, those of us who can get in, it's a good old boy network, but the money's there if you can get in there and get your feet on the ground. So I was like, okay, whatever. It's like, I always wanted to do some stuff in comics, but never took it seriously. He was like, if you ever get a chance, he was like, it's an industry you got to be all in on that. So he said, well, you're going to the Black Planet, the Black Panel. And I was like, nah, what's that? And he was like, well, come back tomorrow morning for the Black Panel. And I was like, okay, bet the ticket I got, I can come back tomorrow. So came back, and it was a panel run by Milestones or creators. Michael Davis, Dennis Cowan was there. He wasn't participating, but he was in the room, and a few other people. It was just like all these powerful Black people in comics and movies and television, film, and industry. And I was like, wow. And after sitting in that panel, I was like, you know what? Milestone had just left not too long ago, a few years ago. Milestone had just stopped producing comics. And I was primarily at the time the Black comic book producer out there. And I was like, we need something to fill a void. So I was like, I can do this. So I went up and introduced myself to Dennis Cowan, and he was talking to a gentleman. And I was telling him, hey, I had this idea for a certain character. And the gentleman he was talking to was like, bet. He said, I'd like to get on that. And I was like, okay. It was Ken Lashley, who at the time had just started drawing Black Panthers for Marvel. So I went home and started writing some stuff out and getting the characters and stuff together. And Ken had sat down and did some drawings for me. He's the first person to draw our flagship character. It was called Titan the Ultraman. So that once I started that, I never looked back. We've been doing it ever since. So it's a business where it's hard, but at the same time, it's something that I love doing, passionate about doing. Besides, our kids and our people need to see representation of themselves. Love characters like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, but we need more characters that look like us that are, have our life experiences.
Definitely. And that's one thing that plays such a big role with me growing up. I'm a little bit younger, but when DC first came out with the Justice League cartoon, and they made the choice to go with Stewart instead of Jordan.
Over Jordan. Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. And and it was crazy because when you look at a certain generation now, that is their Green Lantern. It's John Stewart.
Exactly. And that's what our kids need growing up. They need to have heroes that are like, when you see him, you're like, oh yeah, that's our Superman, or that's our Batman. I mean, right. And I'm not knocking DC for anything they're doing. I know they're trying to do more diversity, but it hits a little different when you have a Batman who you put him in a suit and he's Black. Bruce Wayne is always going to come back. But when you have a character that you created from scratch, like say a Naomi or Joe from Joe the Green Lantern, that's already Black, it's a new character, it hits a little different, and it's received a little different.
Right. And that's another thing too, when we talk about the characters, and one thing that I liked about your characters is even like they're Black people, but it's not necessarily like some shamanic African totem, or you know what I'm saying? Like, nah, we can get science-based powers too. Like, it don't have to be no animal spirit or nothing like that.
Right. I try to, and not only do I try to have emphasis on strong Black male, female role models and characters in each and every book I do, but I still throw in some other characters as well. You have Hispanic characters, I have Asian characters. Of course, I got white characters, but you always going to see our characters come across as what we want them to be, what we've always dreamed them to be, and say, hey, we need our own superheroes. We need our own characters who have a strong voice. You're always going to see that in our books.
Right. And I don't want to stay on this specific topic for too long, but you sort of had mentioned with the future site, whatever, Batman. Now he's, you know, a black dude, but like you said, we always know Bruce Wayne is gonna come back. How do you feel about the I don't even know what the term is, but how do you feel about, like, I guess race swapping or whatnot of the characters? I know a lot of people get upset about it just based off pure like ignorance, like, oh, it's supposed to be a white guy, whatever. And then some people are like, but it's lazy too. What's your take on that? Like, say like a Wally West being changed to like a black kid, or even in the sense of like a Miles Morales, where you're not swapping the character necessarily, but the hero representing that character now is going to be black. And I say Miles Morales because he seems to have made his own space. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah, Miles is ingrained now. Anytime you have a feature movie down on a character, he ain't going nowhere. With the Miles character, I always liked Miles when Bendis and them created him for the Ultimate Marvel Universe. It was an interesting way to flip Peter Parker and to do it from a point of view that wasn't seen that often. Black people, of course. The Wally West on TV's Flash, I liked because it made sense. Here you had Iris, who was black. Her father was black. Wally, where on a show that was her brother, but you know, basically it's her nephew. So it made sense for him to be black. As far as this, a lot of companies doing it just to be doing it to placate readers, I'm not a big fan of that. Unless you want to get in and you want to hire some black editors, some black writers, some black artists who can make up their own characters that you're going to use long term to fit into the mythos of DC and Marvel, then I'm with it. But if you're doing it just to be doing it and you're going to switch them back in a few months, I'm not with that.
Understood. So just a little bit back to your journey when you were reaching out to people. Well, I guess you met the one dude and he drew your character for you. Like, did you guys keep that relationship? Did he go on to illustrate or draw all the characters, or like what happened?
No,
with that?
he drew that one character. Like I said, he was already working for Marvel, so he was big time. So I was even blessed to even come across his path and for him to do that. Yeah. What I did was I hit the Deviant Art trail, the Facebook trail, and I was basically just scouring the planet looking for my Murderers Row crew. Basically, I was seeing artists who were doing different things, you know, posting pictures on Facebook here and there, and I hit up a few, and we start running from there. But now at this point, we have some fairly big names who do work for us on occasion. Plus, we have our own team of creators who I like to call the Untouchables. I know that's a little braggadocious, but I mean, the boys and males and females, they put out awesome work. So, you know, I call them the Untouchables.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. So when you were getting started, are you just pretty much like dumping your own money into this project? Like how?
Oh yeah. Pretty much everything I put into Advent Comics was my own money, basically funded off the break. And to this day, that's how I still do it. A lot of people have come to me and asked to become part owners or whatever, but it's more of a love passion project for me. So I ain't ready to treat it like a business just yet, a full business. I'll put it that way. Whereas I'm bringing in investors and things of nature. But every book that I put out, I pay for, and it's expensive. It's an expensive process. I'll say that.
I can imagine because like you gotta pay your Untouchables, and you gotta
pay your artists, you gotta pay your printers, you gotta pay your graphic designers who make your covers, your logos. I mean, if I'll put it this way, and I've heard this said 1,000 times, and Jack Kirby even said it: if you love comics and you get into the business thinking you're gonna be rich, it's gonna break your heart. Oh wow! Because to get in this industry, it's a money industry. So my wife gonna kill me, but let's just say, because this is the first time she probably gonna hear this, the first time or the first book that I ever created, I dropped like 30 G's on just off the break. Yeah. So it's an expensive industry unless you're doing everything yourself, and you're writing it yourself, drawing it yourself, inking it, coloring it, doing it yourself. It's a very expensive process.
And that's definitely something that people don't realize, because up until now, comics really didn't. I mean, people that like comics gave it the respect, but like, you know, mainstream.
Yeah, now with the advent of the Marvel and DC movies, well, even before that, there were movies that were superhero in nature, but you know, they didn't make a big splash like that. But now that Marvel and DC movies have come to the forefront, you know, it's more accepted and more. What can I say? Comic books are more appreciated, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely does. I was actually gonna say, because when I was in college, we actually had to study Watchmen and like write a report on it.
Yes. So
it's definitely, you know, scholastically, culturally, financially, like it's arrived.
Yep. Too true. Too true.
I was wanting to ask you, so when you create a character, like when you think of stuff like color schemes or like costumes, things of that nature, like, do you as the creator of the character come up with that, or is that something collaborative with like whoever's going to be drawing it for you?
There, like I said, I've been loving comic books for a long time, since I was 5 years old. I had created over the years, I still haven't finished counting, but I have like a character bible of characters I created, superheroes, villains, that are over 900 characters in that thing since I was probably from about 11 on up. So when I created my own comics universe, I dusted a lot of those characters off and brought them into the scenes. Now, for all intents and purposes, most of them are the same from when I drew them back as a kid, but you know, they've been refined a little bit. And on some projects, depending on who I work with, I'll let the artists, you know, make some adjustments to them. Like for instance, on the Regulators, I had a couple characters who, you know, I drew characters for them when I was like 12, 13 years old. Greg LaRoque, who had drawn Flash and Legion of Superheroes, he's like, well, I want to tweak this little thing right here about this character. Woo, woo, woo. Hey, bet you're an industry legend. You do what you do. I've let Bart Sears draw some of my covers, and he'd say, oh, I'm gonna tweak this and I'm gonna just move this and do this. Hey, bet, go for it. But most of the characters have stayed the same. But like I said, on occasions I'll let some artists make some tweaks and adjustments here and there.
Okay. And how do you, like, when you're telling the story, when you're going through the paces or whatnot, like, are you one of the guys that's like, okay, you start at the beginning or start at the ending rather, excuse me, and work your way back? Or is it more like you just start writing and then it ends where it ends?
Well, because I am the creator of the universe and I'm pretty much the head writer now, I've started to hire other writers to come in and take over where I've stopped on certain books. But everything's all plotted out because it's all in my head. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the very first book I did, the very first page, I spun off 2 big books that I wanted to do off that one particular page. And one of them was that book I had submitted to Marvel. It later transformed itself into a book that I have now called Cosmos. But yes, everything is in my mind. I know how every character's arc is going to end up and begin. And you know, as they go through their trials and tribulations, I pretty much have it all figured out, plotted out.
Okay. So we got to the point where you're actually making the comic. You're you're connecting with people, excuse me, that can get characters drawn for you, or you're drawing the characters yourself. What's that next step? Like, you just reach out to publishers? Like, how do you, or excuse me, reach out to like printing houses? Like, how do you go about actually you got it written, you got it inked, you got it drawn, you got it colored, everything. I just need to get it to people. Like, what's that step?
Well, if it depends on if you're going to let a company publish your book for you, let's say it's sort of like an Image or a Dark Horse. If you want to say let a company publish for you, that's one thing, because then they'll assume all the duties or what have you. Self-publishing, you pretty much do all of that yourself. You can self-publish through places like Amazon and Kindle. I have done all of that and more. So I am my own publishing company. So I assume the publishing, get distribution, get my books not only to people here in the States, but in the 6 continents that we sell on, in the 50 countries that we currently sell in. So I do all of that. I would say it depends. It's a lot. Like I said, it's a lot of work. It depends on what your motivation is, or how serious you are about it. Because if you do it yourself, you're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to market this book yourself. You're going to have to scream from the top of the skyscrapers about this book. You have to push it. You want to do every little facet of work and getting this book out yourself. Some people, that's too much for them, so they try to go through a company to publish for them, which is cool too. But do your research, because there are some pitfalls when you take your product to other companies.
Like editorially or financially, or both?
Both, because some publishers I hear, basically they'll front all your costs, but until they're paid back, you don't make too much money from them. Editorially, they're gonna having an editor on your books is always a smart move. But if you have a vision of your own that you want to see made, an editor may not agree with what you want to have happen. Editor might say, "Oh, well, that's cool the way you have this particular character, but I don't think that should be your focus in this book," or whatever. And they may have you change your book a little. Now, if that's something that you don't want to do, you may want to think about doing it yourself.
Right. So, in the process of like doing this, getting everything done, like obviously the meeting of Tyrese that's just luck. You know, you can't plan for that.
That was luck and happenstance. And then basically he got the creative juices flowing again when I saw, how well he was received. And like I said, I had never been to Comic-Con at all. And so when I saw that, and I saw the love, well, he was a star. I saw the love he was getting. But then when I saw some of the other Black creators in the room, there were only 3 other Black creators who had tables on the floor of San Diego Comic-Con, and they weren't really getting no love. And I'm like, hold it. We just lost Milestone. Why aren't people flocking to get your books? And they were like, well,
yeah,
it's still being Black in the industry. But when I went to the Black panel and they were talking, and I was like, all this Black creative energy, it was like, it's a given that we're going to start to get somewhere. And I was like, bet. I'm in. I'm all in.
So like, I guess so basically we're saying like that's luck, or some people would say, refer to it as a blessing, you running into Tyrese. I noticed you have a couple of religiously themed heroes and villains in your works. Do you do that because you feel like that needs to be an aspect that's explored, or is it just because like you can use these characters and you know what I'm saying, they already sort of have a built-in backstory, if that makes sense?
The truth of the matter is, when I first sat down, when I got back from that Comic-Con, I said I want to do something totally different than what anybody else is doing. Something that not only will allow me to introduce Black and other characters of color into a comic universe, but I want to take it a step further. So what I did was I said, what's the most, I won't say taboo, what's the most untouched part of creativity shown in comic books that I can take and run with? And religion was it. And I was like, okay, you always see, even in big comic books like Marvel and DC, you always see there's a good, there's an evil, but you'll take it higher or take it to a more abstract. You see that they're demons, you see that there's a hell, but you never saw that there was really a God or really a heaven. And I said, okay, I'm gonna build my whole comic book universe around an actual heaven and hell. We still gonna have superheroes, still have supervillains, but we're gonna introduce the dynamic of not only demons and angels, we have a heaven and hell and a God and a devil. So we took it there and we built around that, and it caught on. People were like, "Bad." They were like, "Yeah, okay, this is what's up." So we don't do it per se to just to have these characters. Every character serves a purpose, and we do have a spirit line or a line that's pretty much religious themed characters. But we also have horror stories. We have crime stories, science fiction. We have every genre except for I do not do strong porn type characters or porn type books because I have a lot of young readers. So I don't mess with that.
Now, and forgive me for my lack of knowledge, when you say that, are you referring to like a character of like like a, well, see, I was gonna say like a Deadpool type character where it might be a little bit more graphic than you would see on like a Superman book or something like that?
Well, a Deadpool is actually kind of minor. Now, I do have when I say that, I'm saying it with a joke. When I say I do have two titles that are mature readers.
Okay.
Off the break. That's the Hit Squad one. It's a book about a group, the world's best assassins. Basically, they're unparalleled. They never miss. You find out that
that's what the.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that's the sins, right? Like
they're the seven deadly sins of man. So they're actually demons who've come to Earth and they causing chaos and confusion disguised as assassins. So that's one. But that book is off the rails. So, I mean, language and all kinds of stuff I got going on in that book. It's cool. And there's another book called Southside. It's a fairly new book. Retailers across the country are digging it. Fans are starting to dig it. Right now, it's only a 4-issue miniseries, but the response I'm getting from the comic book stores in the orders is like, I probably want to either do another series or make it an ongoing book. Basically, a character called Dalton Malone comes back to the streets of DC to find out who murdered his boy. Now that's straight language, violence, even nudity, but you won't find any graphic sex or anything of that nature when I say that.
Gotcha.
But like I said, I draw the line at graphic sex because the kids don't need to see all that.
Yeah, definitely. Now when you're doing that, would that be like sort of like almost like a hard-boiled detective type?
Yeah, it's a crime noir, hard-boiled street. When I say street, I mean street level book.
Like a Goings type.
Like a Donald Goings meets Sin City meets David Walker Shaft. I mean, it's hardcore. It's hardcore. And like I said, it's been receptive by both fans and the comic book stores, and it's selling out where the comic stores have put it in place. So I'm like, okay. So like I said, we're on issue 2. Issue 2 actually drops on Kickstarter next month, but we already have started drawing issue 4.
Nice. With the current climate and everything, going on in the country, do you think your books are going to start reflecting a tone, like sort of speaking on that? Or
they already have.
Gotcha.
I can't tell you who is drawing it, but like I said, our flagship character, Titan, he's going to deal with some issues in the next issue of the book, Titan 4. And I've always I've always spoke my mind through my characters. Now I don't put it to the point where I'm preaching to people, but if there's a thought that I have, let's say for instance, police violence or police brutality, you'll see it in the book. You'll see it in the book, and
yes,
I present it. Yeah, I present it in a way it's you know how I feel, but also the characters may react a little different. They may react a little different, meaning you'll come away with your own view on the situation. I won't always be pro how can I put it? I'm pro black, but in the books, I don't put everything in your face like that. Basically, it's a good story. You'll be able to make your own determinations, but you'll also be able to be like, that brother, he know.
I got you. Divorcing your own creations from it, who's your favorite comic character all time?
Ooh, favorite all-time comic character? That would be close. I grew up reading Spider-Man, but as a character and for what they represent, I'm gonna go with either Superman or maybe a very slight second, Captain America. I just like the values of those characters came across when I was younger, and they taught kids back when it was okay to teach kids in comic books. You know, basically it taught morality, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do, but for our own people.
Hey man, I'm not mad at that because Superman was used to break the Klan. So there we go.
Oh yeah, oh definitely, man. Superman did a whole bunch of stuff against race traders back in the day. He was created by two Jewish dudes who got fed up with how people were treating them. So Superman did a whole bunch of stuff that most people today be like, oh, well, you put politics in the comic books. Nah, politics has been there, champ, since 1930.
Hey, man, I'm so mad that I can't think of the name of the book, but there's a guy that wrote a book, and he's basically arguing that the Superman story is pretty much supposed to be like an allegory for Moses.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
And like the Kal-El is like literally like a Hebrew name. Like,
yep, I've heard that before. And actually, I can see the points that would align to support his theory. I definitely see that.
Definitely, man. Did you, excuse me, growing up in comics, I know in like the 80s and stuff, like, and especially the 90s where everything got extreme. Did you sort of fall off, or did you stay with it that whole time period?
I kept going a little bit, like early Image. I collected all of their characters and all of their books. I guess around about a short period between 96 to maybe like 2000, I was like buying comics here or there. And I got kind of back into it like in 2001, 2002, but not nowhere near like I was before. It was, okay, I go in the store and I might buy like 6-7 titles and leave it at that. Whereas back in the day, I was buying everything. All my money was going to comic books. But like I said, I followed here or there, and I picked up a few titles again going on. But comics had changed by that point for me. Comics had changed, and some of what I was seeing, I was like, I'm gonna pass on that. But I still had my love for comics. Like I said, I was a big Milestone fan. I still supported DC and Marvel, of course. Some Image stuff. By that time, Image superheroes was falling off, and Image was doing like unique stories. Vertigo, I read a lot of Vertigo books. So I was still picking up comics, but it wasn't as diehard as it used to be.
I hear that. I got a friend, and he's like we both are very into the comic medium. We were talking the other day with the and obviously I know you don't have anything to do with this, it's just me sort of talking about it. With the what's going on with DC, and he was of the opinion.
That's sad.
Yeah, right.
First, that's sad.
And he was of the opinion that the actual physical medium of comic books is now basically going to just be a writer's room pitching movie ideas, pretty much. Like the comics are gonna start serving the movies rather than the movies serving the comics. Do you see that trend? Do you think that's true, or you think that's cynical?
That may be true, but only here's the important part, you got to remember that. I only have Marvel and DC, because Marvel and DC are producing movies that they have a group of investors and people who have stock in the company. So they got to please those people. So the movies are the big thing right now. So of course you see a lot of the movie stuff making its way into the comic books, but that's only of those two. Now, if you go indie comic books, that's where all creativity is and has been for at least the last 15 years. Indie comics, you want creativity. Indie creators are doing some amazing stuff. All you got to do is go to Kickstarter. All you got to do is go to Indiegogo. All you got to do is just look at some of these titles and some of the works that are coming out of these creators, and it's amazing. So you will only see movies becoming comics from Marvel and DC, because, like I said, the movie sell, these companies have to make money. They have to take care of their stockholders, their investors. So they're going to take what sells and put it into the comic books. Whereas indie creators, they can do whatever, however they like, whenever they like.
I understand that. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think with how much weight Marvel and DC have, if they did take that step where they're like, because doesn't one of them's already all digital? Am I wrong about that?
I know DC took a couple of their titles digitally. Marvel did as well. A lot of people have been saying the comic book industry is going to die. It's flourishing.
Okay.
Just on Kickstarter alone, I think it made $2 billion, something like $2 billion last year. Yeah, so floppy comic books or comic books themselves, they'll never go away. They'll never go away. And most people, they like to read the books. They like to read trades. They like to read graphic novels. As a matter of fact, if you look at the young adult industry, that's blowing up, and that's print. That won't go anywhere.
The
digital
YA.
Yeah, the YA, right?
Gotcha.
Young adults. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw.
Now,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I was going to say that digital is doing okay. We have some of our books on Comixology and other digital platforms across Kindle and some other places, but it will never take the place of print books. So yeah, there's no problem with that.
Yeah, I guess that was pretty much my question, man. So you answered that. So print's here to stay.
Yeah, it's definitely here to stay.
Is it cheaper to do digital, or is it like
much cheaper, because all you have to do is produce the work, and then you can send it out with zero overhead, printing, shipping, and then depending on if you're doing your own distribution, if you have stores you have to ship to, they're going to require a certain number of books. Let's say, for instance, we ship to Barnes & Noble. Some of our books to Barnes & Noble. Depends on which location or which region of the country. They may ask for 2,000 for this region. We want 3,000 the same book for the West Coast region. So that's when it gets to be a little expensive. But digital, upload and go. Once you do the production of it, upload and go, and you can send that around the world.
Right. I do have one final question, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me this morning. If they gave you the option, they said, okay, one of your characters, we're gonna give the full treatment. They're getting a movie, they're getting a cartoon on Saturday mornings, whenever they air cartoons these days. Which character would you take and feel like, okay, this is the one I want to get that magnification and that shine and have out there into the pop culture?
Without a doubt, Titan the Ultraman. Like I said, that's our flagship character. Basically, he's like a black Superman. He's like Icon from Milestone. I'll use that in a loving comparison. Even though the two characters are nowhere near the same.
Right.
But yeah, because I feel, in my opinion, our people need to see versions of us doing incredible and amazing things. That imagery resonates and hits in a way that I think most people don't understand, because we're so conditioned to what we see in this culture of TV and internet and things of that nature. And it's little things that become ingrained in our mind. But if we start seeing our own characters in powerful roles and doing big things, or our own characters on cartoons and movies and TV shows and toys, it's a new ball game.
I definitely believe it as well. And once again, I do just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to speak with me.
Oh man, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate it so much. You don't know. I'm honored to do it. And if anytime you ever need me for anything else, just send a word out. I'm there for you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I was actually going to say as well, if you do have, any events, comic events you need to hype, or, something coming out, or, debut, let me know.
Matter of fact, I'm going to send you a copy when we get off the air. I'm going to send you a copy of Southside. You read the first issue, tell me what you think. And I'll send you a preview of, I have the first 14 pages of book 2 done. I'll send you maybe like a 5-page preview of that, so you can see where we're going with it and see if you like it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. And once again, you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Same to you, Ron. Appreciate you, and to your fans, thank you for listening to me ramble. I'm not a good interview. I like I said, I go in 1,000 different directions, so my mind's always moving. So forgive me if I ramble, fans. I just appreciate y'all listening and giving me a chance to come introduce myself to you all.
Hey, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Same but so real. Yeah, give me change that you can feel. Yeah, a dream we can't believe. Yeah, welcome to Knowville.